Be careful your mop doesn't stain my mirror floor, CEO Victoria Lane snapped, in the middle of the new building's grand launch ceremony. The man in the janitor uniform holding the mop could only bow his head in apology. She tossed her chin, her voice dripping with mockery. Do you even know how much this floor is worth, janitor? He finally looked up, his eyes calm, steady. I do, because I was the one who poured its foundation. Before the war took my friend's hands, and before it took my wife. The murmurs in the hall instantly silenced. A little girl suddenly ran up and hugged his leg. Daddy, I finished my performance. The entire hall fell into a stunned silence. The CEO stared, aghast at the little girl, and then at the photo on the Lane Foundation Certificate of Merit beneath the design signature. Daniel Cole. Daniel Cole, 41 years old, was a single father who navigated the world with the quiet grace of a man who had already faced his worst fears. His current life as a night shift janitor was a stark contrast to his past as a highly sought-after structural engineer. He was renowned in the industry for his specialized knowledge in deep pile foundations and seismic-resistant structures, the kind of invisible complexity that allows towers to kiss the clouds. The Lane Tower itself, the gleaming 150-story structure that defined Victoria Lane's empire, was his magnum opus, his forgotten testament to precision. His life had been tragically cleaved 3 years prior. His beloved wife, Clara, an aid worker, was killed in a devastating industrial explosion in Iraq. Daniel had been there, volunteering his expertise to rebuild crucial infrastructure when the disaster struck. He had survived, but his emotional wounds were deep and crippling. While his hands remained physically capable, the trauma had left him with an unpredictable tremor, a ghost in his nervous system that made the high-precision calculations and detailed wire work of top-tier engineering impossible. The psychological weight of responsibility, knowing a small mistake could mean catastrophic loss, was too much to bear. He needed a role where his hands could still serve, but without the lethal pressure of structural design. He settled for the janitorial job at Lane Tower, working the overnight shift so he could be present for his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily, bright and resilient, was his entire world, but she carried the lingering heavy shadow of her mother's absence. Daniel used his meticulous engineering mind to clean. He didn't just move a mop, he studied the floor's traffic patterns, calculated the most efficient cleaning route, and meticulously addressed every scuff mark. He saw his work not as menial, but as a commitment to maintaining the structure from its most visible surface. He held a painful secret: to cover the experimental and spiraling medical bills for Clara before she passed, he had signed away all rights to his Lane Tower design. He sold his legacy for her final chance at life, a transaction he carried with quiet dignity. He taught Lily every day, Lily, we clean the floor, not because someone is watching us, but so that no one else will fall down. This was his code, unseen service ensuring stability. Victoria Lane, 35, the CEO of the Lane Foundation, was a woman who embodied the ethos of the corporate world. She was brilliant, demanding, and utterly ruthless in her pursuit of excellence, viewing the company as a perfectly optimized machine. She held a deep, inherited pride in the Lane name and believed success was strictly proportional to power and wealth. She had a profound, almost aggressive contempt for blue-collar labor, seeing manual workers as replaceable statistics who lacked the drive for true strategic success. The launch day of the Lane Tower was her triumphant moment, a public declaration of her empire's superiority. Daniel was assigned to the spotless granite and glass lobby. He was focused on his work, creating a surface so reflective it truly looked like a mirror. In the midst of the glittering pre-launch reception, the inevitable happened. A flurry of movement and a sudden audible splash. An entire tray, loaded with crimson red wine, crashed onto the polished floor. The sight of the deep red liquid marring the pristine white granite sent a jolt of primal rage through Victoria. She was there instantly, her voice cutting through the embarrassed silence. "Stop! Be careful your mop doesn't stain my mirror floor," she snapped at Daniel, her voice amplified by the stunned silence. She saw only the uniform, the mop, and the stain on her perfect aesthetic. Her eyes narrowed with disdain. Do you know how much this floor is worth, janitor? This marble alone costs more than your annual salary. Daniel straightened slowly. He looked directly at her, a calm, quiet challenge in his tired eyes. He didn't offer a defense. He offered the truth. I do, Mrs. Lane. I know the exact compressive strength and the precise cost of every poured cubic yard of concrete holding this structure up, because I was the one who poured its foundation, before the war took my friend's hands, and before it took my wife. The sheer, unexpected gravity of his confession, his past loss, his hidden professional identity, and his quiet suffering hit the opulent crowd like a physical wave. The murmurs died instantly, replaced by a horrified, collective stillness. Before Victoria could process the impact of his words, Lily burst through the doors, her small face alight. Daddy, I finished my performance. Did you see me? She hugged his leg, looking up at the furious CEO with innocent excitement. The cameras flashed. Victoria, utterly stunned, was forced to turn her attention away from the man she had just humiliated. Her eyes fell on the wall where the new certificate of merit hung, a dedication to the tower's designers, and the ghost of a name beneath the bold title, Daniel Cole. As Lily held him on, her small hand clutched a worn brass keychain. It was etched with his personal motto, a reflection of his engineering philosophy and his role as a father. Ground first, always. The man she had ridiculed as a simple floor cleaner was the foundational pillar of her entire empire. The ensuing media coverage was brutal, but not for Daniel. It was for Victoria. The story, Billionaire mocks the architect who built her tower, went global, tearing gaping holes in her image of corporate perfection. The pressure was immense, but Victoria was driven by something deeper than PR damage control, a consuming need to understand the man she had wronged. The very next morning, she abandoned her executive meetings and submerged herself in the basement archives. Hours later, she emerged with a thick file marked Lane Foundation Initial Design, Architect Cole. The documents were a testament to Daniel's genius, complex, elegant, and structural solutions that were both cost-effective and structurally superior. Then came the chilling discovery. Memos from her late father's team detailing the forced substitution of high-grade, load-bearing steel with cheaper alternatives, and Daniel's subsequent non-negotiable resignation for reasons of ethical and public safety concern. Her father hadn't just fired Daniel, he had exiled a man of honor to facilitate an act of corporate deceit. Driven by a profound, restless guilt, Victoria went straight to the maintenance basement. She found Daniel not cleaning, but meticulously sharpening an old utility knife, while Lily sat nearby, quietly drawing on the back of an unused blueprint. I read the files, Daniel, Victoria admitted, her voice low, the formal CEO tone stripped away. About the steel substitutions, about my father's decisions. I am deeply sorry for his actions and for my own words yesterday. They were ignorant and cruel. Daniel put down the knife, meeting her gaze with a quiet, unsettling calmness. It's all right, Ms. Lane. People only mock what they haven't taken the time to truly understand. They only sneer when they don't recognize the vital, silent role of the foundation they stand on. He looked at the floor, then back at her. I left with my dignity intact. The money for the design helped Clara gain 3 more months. That was the only currency that mattered. Victoria, unable to sit in her expensive coat amidst the dust, pulled up an overturned plastic bucket and sat, stunned by his composure. She listened as he spoke, recounting his life's pivot, the trauma, the loss, and the quiet acceptance that his new purpose was purely custodial, being present for Lily. He spoke not with bitterness, but with a clear-eyed clarity that made her feel frivolous and superficial. He recounted the moment he discovered the steel was being compromised. The truth is, Ms. Lane, I could have fought it legally, but my wife was in the hospital, and I was given a choice. Your name on the tower, or your wife's life a little longer. I chose her. I sold the design, took the severance, and walked away from Lane Tower so it could still stand, even if it was flawed. My reputation was less important than the public safety. Just then, Lily ran up, holding out a piece of foil-wrapped cake. Mr. Daniel made this, she announced to Victoria. He makes them when he misses Mom a lot. They're called Clara's Comfort Cakes. Daniel's tired face softened into a look of profound, aching love. It helps keep the memory fresh, he murmured, turning his gaze away. Victoria took a hesitant bite. The cake was warm, rich with vanilla and butter, simple yet deeply comforting. In that cold, echoing basement, surrounded by the tools of unseen labor, the powerful CEO found herself laughing, a genuine, unpracticed sound she hadn't made in years. The shame remained, a heavy weight, but for the first time she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she could redeem the legacy her father had corrupted. That night, Victoria drove home, deeply shaken. She realized her father had built the company on shaky ground, literally and morally. Her obsession with looking up, at stock prices, at height, at prestige, had blinded her to the necessity of looking down, at the integrity of the base. The next morning, Victoria summoned Daniel to her opulent office. "I want to offer you a position," she stated, her tone professional, yet infused with newfound respect. "Not cleaning. I want you back as chief technical consultant, reporting directly to me. I need your knowledge, Daniel. I need your integrity to fix what my father broke." He surveyed the office, the panoramic view of the city, the expensive art, the reflective desk. He slowly shook his head, his refusal absolute, yet gentle. "I appreciate the faith, Ms. Lane, truly, but I want to keep cleaning the floor. I've learned more about true worth down here than I ever did in a boardroom. Sometimes one needs to bend low to truly see clearly what the real priorities are. The foundation is where I belong, because the foundation is where the truth is." After Daniel left, Victoria found something small on her desk. It was a tiny foil-wrapped wedge of the comfort cake. It was wrapped in a simple, discarded napkin from the ceremony, on which Lily had laboriously scrawled in crayon, "Thank you for listening to my daddy. He's the best cleaner." It was a message of pure, innocent gratitude that defined his worth, not by a title, but by his quality of service. Victoria looked at the cake and the note, realizing the value of this small gift far exceeded the worth of her entire empire. The board of directors, already reeling from the public fallout of the initial confrontation, saw Victoria's attempt to hire Daniel back as an act of corporate treason. Their fear was palpable. They viewed Daniel not as a moral center, but as an uncontrollable variable, a walking, talking liability that threatened their stability. The emergency board meeting was a siege. "This is an unprecedented crisis, Victoria. You are jeopardizing the company's image and our stock valuation for a janitor, a man who was effectively terminated for insubordination by the founder," bellowed Mr. Sterling, the most conservative director, his face pale with fury. His words were backed by financial data. The stock was plummeting, driven by investor panic. The arguments were purely transactional, devoid of humanity. "The optics were toxic. We must cut this liability. We cannot reward bad behavior, even if it comes with a tragic backstory," argued the chief legal officer, emphasizing the word liability. They demanded she rescind the offer, issue a formal public apology for her emotional mismanagement, and terminate Daniel Cole immediately. Victoria, though shaken by the financial consequences, held her ground. "This is not about an emotional liability. This is about corporate integrity. This man possesses the honor that this company lost when my father substituted that steel. If we sacrifice him, we are sacrificing our chance at genuine redemption. We are not just fixing our stock, we are fixing our soul." Her defiance only intensified their resolve. The narrative of a romantic entanglement deepened. The media ran screaming headlines. "CEO Lane seeks to appoint fired janitor to $2 billion project advisor role." She was cornered, facing professional ruin for an ethical stand. Finally, she had no choice. She found Daniel in the quiet of the maintenance bay, polishing the brass hardware on a set of century-old elevator doors. "I'm sorry, Daniel. They won, for now," she confessed, the admission stinging like a physical wound. "I had to formally retract the consultant offer. The pressure from the investors was too great. I am not strong enough to fight them all and keep the company from total collapse. He stopped polishing, wiped his brow with the back of his hand, and gave her a sharp It's all right, Miss Lane, I told you. The foundation of a good structure can still hold, even when people to remove the upper floors. You made the moral choice. You risked everything for truth, and that is a heavier foundation than all the steel in the world. His quiet resilience was another sharp lesson in inner strength. He viewed her defeat as a moral victory. The crisis reached its explosive climax a few days later. An anonymous source, later discovered to be a small group of former engineers loyal to Daniel, leaked a video of the 10-year-old corporate meeting. The video, filmed on a shaky dated camera, was titled "The Ghost from the Foundation." The footage was damning. A younger, energetic Daniel, passionate and furious, presenting irrefutable engineering data warning that using the cheaper, substandard materials, as suggested by Victoria's father, would lead to catastrophic structural failure within 2 decades. His detailed presentation was met with cold dismissal, mocking laughter, and eventual threats of legal action from the then CEO. The video went globally viral within hours. It was more than a scandal, it was evidence of a lethal cover-up. Lane Foundation, it seemed, was built on a ticking time bomb of corporate greed, and Daniel Cole was the silenced prophet. Victoria knew she was past the point of no return. Denial was impossible. She called an emergency live international press conference. Standing alone at this podium, her usual tailored suit replaced by a simple, unadorned black dress, she publicly acknowledged the entire technical file, confirming that her father had indeed compromised safety for profit and had unjustly pushed Daniel Cole out. "I apologize to Mr. Cole and to the public," she declared, her voice ringing with hard-won honesty. "The foundation of this company was flawed, and today we begin rebuilding it with transparency. I will not hide from the sins of the past." Daniel watched the broadcast from a small, dusty television in the janitor's lounge, his heart pounding. The moment Victoria finished, a reporter managed to reach him by phone, putting his reply on the live feed. His reply, calm and powerful, sealed the company's fate and Victoria's redemption. "No apology is necessary. Ms. Lane has already paid the price of honesty. Just promise me you won't forget who stops the house from falling down, even if they're no longer here." The board immediately executed their plan, voting to strip Victoria of her CEO title. The vote was unanimous. As she gathered the few items that truly mattered from her office, the phone rang. It wasn't an investor, it was the CEO of an international massive construction consortium. A rival, but a morally sound one. "Miss Lane, we have been watching your stand," the voice said, powerful and measured. "Your honesty in the face of financial ruin is the only foundation we trust. We are offering you a joint partnership to lead our new global division. We need a CEO who values integrity over the share price. Your truth is your new currency." Victoria was stunned. Her greatest defeat had become her greatest triumph. She drove immediately to the basement. She found Daniel and Lily cleaning the floor together, the two of them a small, peaceful unit in the chaos. Victoria walked towards them, her step light despite her recent defeat. "Daniel," she said, kneeling to be at his eye level, "if you once poured the physical foundation for my father's deception, I need your help to build a new one, a moral foundation, for everyone else. Will you join me?" Daniel looked at his daughter, then back at the woman who had sacrificed everything for truth. He slowly nodded. "Yes, Victoria, I will." As they cemented their new partnership, Daniel helped Lily spread a thin, protective layer of wet concrete patch over a deeply cracked section of the old basement floor. Lily took a twig and, with careful, messy concentration, wrote a message. "No one sees the foundation, but everyone stands on it." It was a silent, unshakable promise of their new, honorable endeavor. The new partnership, dubbed Integrity Global, launched with the immediate construction of the Ground Project. This was Victoria's first independent initiative, a comprehensive, nonprofit venture dedicated to building free, structurally sound, and architecturally beautiful housing for construction workers and their families who had suffered catastrophic loss or injury on the job. It was meant to be a permanent, tangible apology to the industry. Victoria immediately appointed Daniel as the Chief Technical Integrity Supervisor. He refused the title yet again, but this time with a joyful firmness. "I will take the brow," he stated firmly, "but I want my title to be head of the floor crew. I need that title to remind everyone, myself included. Building a great house or a great company is exactly like cleaning a floor. It has to be done with meticulous, honest, full-effort care. We need to be on our knees to know the quality of the work." And Victoria, understanding that the title was his badge of honor, agreed instantly. Daniel brought his quiet, profound wisdom to the construction site. He didn't just supervise, he mentored. He treated every worker, from the heavy equipment operator to the newest apprentice, with the same respect he had shown to the highest paid engineer. He instilled his philosophy that the quality of the subfloor and the precision of the rebar placement were far more important than the expensive finishing details. He taught them that true strength is hidden, not displayed. Lily was the undisputed star of the ground project. The little girl, now thriving, her health secure, and her spirit bright, spent her afternoons at the site. She was beloved by the construction crew, offering them juice boxes and listening intently to their stories. She would spend hours with the foreman, coloring on the back of unused blueprints, often teaching the seasoned, tough-handed workers how to write the word thank you or honor in the fresh, still wet concrete, a permanent, indelible tribute to gratitude and respect embedded in the very structure of the home. One rainy afternoon, Victoria drove to the site, concerned about the impact of the downpour. She found Daniel standing over a pile of drying lumber, his large frame entirely exposed to the rain. Suddenly he moved, quickly pulling off his work jacket and holding it over Lily's head as they rushed back to the trailer, shielding her from the sudden downpour. It was a simple, automatic gesture of fierce, protective love, a profound contrast to the calculated, cold corporate acts she was used to. Victoria watched them, feeling a deep, non-monetary connection to the scene. "You know, Daniel," she said once they were dry in the trailer, sipping bitter coffee, "in all this time, even when I offered you millions, you never once asked me for anything personal. No favor, no gift." He smiled, a rare, open expression of deep contentment. "If I could ask for one thing, Victoria, it would be this. Never forget the grace owed to the hands covered in mud. Never forget the people who build your beautiful tower so that you can look down on the world. My request is not for me, but for them. Keep the ground honest." His words were a new mission statement. When the first phase of the ground project was completed, a complex of 20 beautiful, safe, and impeccably constructed homes, Victoria insisted Daniel be the one to give the keynote address. He stood on the makeshift stage, wearing his humble head of floor crew jacket, his presence radiating quiet authority and undeniable integrity. He spoke only one simple, yet monumental sentence that transcended the entire corporate world and made the entire audience, from construction workers to high-profile donors, stand up in thunderous applause. "Without a solid foundation, every single floor eventually falls. But the foundation requires no fame, only the unwavering will to stand firm." His truth became their new purpose. The official permanent sign for the completed project was not a cold corporate plate. It was a massive, rough-hewn wooden sign mounted low to the ground. Etched onto it, in a slightly wobbly hand, copied directly from one of Lily's chalk drawings on the site, were the words, "The floor that never forgets." It was a promise that this project would always remember the sacrifices made at the bottom. 1 year after the completion of the ground project, it had become the undisputed symbol of ethical construction and corporate humanitarianism globally. Lane Tower was still standing, but its story was now defined by the redemption that began in its basement. Daniel Cole was still the head of the floor crew, a title he fiercely protected. He launched successful, sponsored vocational classes for injured workers, teaching them new skills in non-physical engineering, like CAD and quality assurance, and advanced maintenance. Victoria, through her new foundation, fully endowed these programs. Lily, fully recovered and thriving, frequently visited the center, affectionately calling Victoria her architecture teacher. Victoria, in turn, called Lily her little foundation stone, acknowledging the small child who had been the catalyst for her entire moral revolution. One quiet Saturday morning, Victoria visited Daniel at his new home, a comfortable, safe, and custom-designed unit within the ground project community. She carried a large, rolled-up sheet of thick blueprint paper. "I have a new idea, Daniel," she announced, unrolling the plans on his simple kitchen table. The design was for a specialized educational and therapeutic center for the children of fallen or injured workers, a place for healing and learning. "I want to name it Cole Hall. It will be built entirely on your philosophy." Daniel stood silent for a long moment, looking at the elaborate, thoughtful design. He slowly traced the lines of the building with his finger. "You've done so much. You don't owe me anything, Victoria. Not a name, not a plaque. I owe a person who reminded me to look down, Daniel." She corrected him gently, her eyes soft with sincerity. "To look at the ground beneath my feet, at the integrity of the soil, instead of only looking up at the financial sky. That is a debt that can never be fully repaid. The name is not for you, it's for the principle you represent." He finally smiled, a look of profound peace settling over his face. He nodded slowly. "Then let it be a hall that teaches children to look after their own foundation and the foundation of others." As the two of them reviewed the plans, the morning sun streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm, shimmering reflection on the polished wood floor. Lily ran in from the small backyard, her small face bright with competitive enthusiasm. "Daddy, look! I mopped my room floor even shinier than yours, Aunt Victoria. You can almost see yourself perfectly." Daniel ruffled her hair, a look of pure paternal love radiating from him. "That's good, sweetie, because when the floor shines, everyone walks with a sure step. They feel safe." Victoria looked at the father and daughter, then at her own reflection in the spotless floor. She realized that Daniel had not only built her a new business, but had given her a new kind of family, one built not on blood or money, but on shared integrity. Outside at the newly approved site for Cole Hall, a final, powerful message was mounted on a large, unpolished stone monument. "Built by those who bend, for those who stand." It was the ultimate, silent tribute to Daniel Cole's quiet heroism and the moral transformation of Victoria Lane. Victoria's final words, delivered in a clear, reflective tone, served as the conclusion to the entire story. "Family isn't where you are born, it's where people choose you and choose to stand with you every single day. Daniel, Lily, in the Ground Project, that is the foundation I choose to build my life upon." If you believe that stories of quiet dignity, personal integrity, and a father's fierce love deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe to Strong Dad Stories. We tell the tales of the hidden heroes who should never be forgotten, the ones who teach us that the greatest strength is found on our knees.